After a deadly crash earlier this year, a Texas senator is now looking at making Texas hospitals safer. This week on Inside the Investigations, KXAN investigator Matt Grant takes a broader look at safety concerns with that crash and hundreds across the nation.
Hello everyone, welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Inside the Investigation segment with our investigative reporter, Kelly Wiley. Kelly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me on today. I'm excited. We've got our investigative reporter, Matt Grant, here today as our guest, and he's talking about his latest installment of his investigative series, Preventing Disaster. Matt, I was with you when you talked to Senator West at the Capitol about your findings. Tell me about that conversation.
Yeah, so our investigation into that crash that happened 8 months ago this week continues to get momentum and a push for change. So we spoke with Senator West at the Capitol, and he's looking into potential legislation that could potentially require crash-rated bollards at hospitals across the state. It's something he's looking at. He said that he's committed to researching it. He does have some concerns, though, specifically about requiring private entities with doing something. But I asked him, I said, do you think that hospitals should be required to have crash-rated bollards? And he said because of what happened with the Bernard family, who was seriously hurt in that crash, he said that this is something that seriously needs to be looked at. And so that's something that he's committed to doing. And he even had a message directly for the Bernard family. Take a listen.
Reemphasize to the Bernard family, what happened to you was a tragedy, and it shouldn't happen again in the state of Texas. And I'm going to do everything I can within my power to make sure it doesn't happen again.
To Dallas. So the next step is he wants to actually meet with the family and talk with them, and he wants to meet with hospital officials before deciding how to proceed with potential legislation.
So another push forward, it looks like, where he's going to take a deeper look at this. But this talk of a possible bill, it comes 2 months before the Austin City Council is set to vote to require bollards at any new hospitals. Congressman Lloyd Doggett has asked the General Service Administration to conduct a federal review of federal facilities in our region because of your investigation. Can you remind our viewers how we got to this point?
Yeah, so 8 months ago this week, on Sunday the 13th, so what happened was a woman we later found out was drunk. She drove into the ER lobby at St. David's North Austin Medical Center. This was on February 13th of this year. The driver was killed. Surveillance video that we later obtained exclusively showed how it happened. So the driver went into the front doors of the ER entrance and crashed into a fish tank in the lobby, which is where all 4 members of the Bernard family, including their 2 toddlers, were at the time. The young kids were looking at the fish. And the car just basically swallowed them up, crashed into a back wall. We found out that their youngest son had actually gone through the windshield of the car. All 4 members of the Bernard family were seriously hurt, and a 5th person was also injured. Everyone who was hurt that day has since sued St. David's, alleging gross negligence for not having these crash-rated bollards, which has been the focus of our ongoing investigation at the time. The hospital is pushing back on that, but while that's wrapped up in litigation, there's this ongoing safety discussion that's kind of evolved out of our reporting. And we found that these bollards are not required on a local, state, or federal level, even though they've been proven to be effective at saving lives, at stopping a speeding vehicle. We went out earlier this year to Texas A&M's Transportation Institute near College Station, where they actually test these devices. And we watched how effective they can be at stopping a vehicle going 30, 40 miles an hour and preventing them from going forward. So bollards are an ongoing discussion. And right now, because there's no federal or local or state mandate, it's basically up to individual hospitals whether they want to install them or not. So we actually traveled around and went to dozens of hospitals in different counties to see which ones have them and which ones don't. And there's a disparities, right? Some hospitals have them, some hospitals don't. And so right now it's a conversation that's being left to local cities unless there's a uniform statewide standard that's adopted at the legislature.
Matt, you've done all this reporting. What's next?
Yeah, so we're keep pursuing this, and we're going to obviously monitor the December vote with the Austin City Council, where they're going to be discussing requiring bollards, as you mentioned, at new hospitals, new standalone ERs, and urgent cares. We're going to be following the GSA review that Congressman Doggett has ordered. And we're going to keep pushing for answers. I mean, just yesterday, a truck drove into a Cava restaurant in Cedar Park. There were no injuries, but this comes several months after another vehicle drove into a dentist's office in the same city. So it's not just hospitals that we're talking about. This kind of accident happens at a variety of places. And so we're going to be looking at how often these crashes happen at storefronts, because it's not just medical facilities.
No, I mean, we get tips, I feel, all the time about cars going through homes, which is an entirely different kind of set up there. But you're right, it doesn't just happen in hospitals. Those are just probably where the most vulnerable folks are. So
very vulnerable, because if you think about it, Kelly, right? I mean, the way these hospitals are designed, you have someone who drives right up to the entrance of the hospital. So you're driving right up to the doors. And what experts have told me is that, you know, and if you think about it, people who are driving up to the hospital, they might be distressed, they might be hurt, they might be injured. So it's a vulnerable population driving up to a vulnerable entrance that oftentimes is not protected. And we found that these kind of crashes are not uncommon. More than 300 similar instances with medical facilities alone in the past decade that we found working with the Storefront Safety Council, working with their data and data that we found, more than 300 similar crashes. And those are just medical facilities. The amount of times that this has happened at other storefronts, we're still trying to figure that out.
So really, I mean, your reporting has pointed to a clear solution that's available. I guess now it's just a matter of, will it be required and on what level, right? Like we've seen City of Austin make these efforts and they're going to vote, but now it looks like you've got a state lawmaker considering a state solution. So I'm excited to see what comes out of it.
Well, and even if the City of Austin does push this forward, that's just the City of Austin. You still have other cities that don't have similar measures, right? Cedar Park. Other cities don't have this. So it really would be a patchwork system where some cities might have something, other cities might not. But unless there's a statewide standard, it is just going to be left up to local governments to make some sort of action.
Good, fair point.
And Matt, you worked closely with everyone involved in this investigation. Can you tell us, how is the family doing right now at this moment?
Right. So we did the exclusive interview with the Bernard family. And as I mentioned, they're involved in litigation against St. David's. But to your point, yeah, they are doing as well as they can be under the circumstances. Nadia, who you just saw there, was in a wheelchair for a time. I was told that she no longer needs a wheelchair to get around. So she's able to be mobile, but it's going to take time for the family to heal from this fully. They were out of work, multiple broken legs, broken bones. Both their kids, their young toddlers, were seriously hurt. The youngest went through the car windshield. This is not something that they're going to easily be able to move on from. This is going to stay with them, emotionally, psychologically, and physically for many, many months.
Well, thank you for sharing this story, Matt. I know that there was more and more into the investigation that you probably didn't get to include in your on-air story, but we're glad we could talk about it here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if anybody is wondering about his article, we do have that on our website, kxan.com. The entire video is linked there. There's also all the details, links in the article as well, some photos. Matt, what can you tell us about what's in this article that we didn't get to speak on right now?
Well, you'll be able to see more of our interview with Senator West. And we've also linked back to our ongoing investigation. We're calling it Preventing Disaster. And we've got multiple parts. So right there where it says back to main, click here. So if you click that, it'll take you back to our main project, the very first one that we did. And you can see all of the stuff we've done up until now for months. Right there on the right where it says hospital, or in the middle, you can see the hospital responses, crash test videos on the left. So if you click that, you can actually watch the crash test that I was referring to at Texas A&M's Transportation Institute. So you can see for yourself how these bollards are effective. And in this article, we talk more about different types of bollards and why crash-rated ones specifically are the ones that experts say are necessary to stop these kind of crashes, because not all bollards are created equal. We made a little graphic there to kind of talk about the different types of bollards. So there's a lot to explore with our series. And if you want to dive deep into this, we've got a lot for you to take a look at.
Thank you. Kelly, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
No, I'm just so glad we were able to talk about this, and stay tuned with us next week where we'll be talking about another investigation coming from our team.
Thank you both for joining us. And that's all we have today on Inside the Investigation. Remember, this is happening every Friday, and we'd love for you all to join us. Thank you.